So today's conversation that I wanted to get into is one I think we I catch myself often not asking this question of myself enough. And that question is this. And so if you guys are writing something down, or if you got some notes, or if you want to watch the recording or whatever, it's this. It's what is your win? How will you know when you have won? What is this for? So what is your win? How will you know when you have won? And what is this for? And the story that comes to mind, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the Mexican fisherman story. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it to you guys. It's a great story. It's a little parable, if you will. And you can Google search the Mexican fisherman story. So it goes like this. An American investment banker was at the pier of a small coastal Mexican village late one morning when a small boat docked. Inside the small boat was just one fisherman who had already caught several large fish. The American complimented the fisherman on the fish and asked, well, how long did it take to catch them? The fisherman replied, oh, only a little while. The American then asked, well, then why didn't you stay out longer and catch more fish? The Mexican said that he'd caught plenty enough to provide for his family's needs for quite a while, and even to give some fish away to others in the village. The American then asked, but what do you do with the rest of your time? The Mexican fisherman said, well, sometimes I sleep late. I play with my children. I take siestas with my wife. And then sometimes I stroll into the village where I sip on wine and I play guitars with my amigos. I have a very full and busy life. The American scoffed and said, listen, I'm an experienced businessman. I can help you. He said, you should spend a little bit more time fishing. And with the proceeds of the fishing, you can then buy a bigger boat. And then with the proceeds from the bigger boat, you can then have a fleet of boats and then open up your own cannery and start controlling the distribution of the fish. He said, of course, you would have to leave this small village and move to a bigger city to run the expanding enterprise. The fisherman asked, okay, well, how long will that take? The American replied, well, possibly like 15 or 20 years. But what then? Asked the Mexican. The American laughed and said, ah, that's the best part. When the time's right, you can then sell your company and become very rich. You would make millions. Millions, said the Mexican. Well, then what? The American said, well, then you can retire and then move to a small coastal village where you could sleep late and play with your kids and take siestas with your wife and stroll the village where you could sip wine and play guitar with your amigos. Oh, I already do that, said the fisherman. What's your win? And what's this for? And could you possibly be living the life of the fisherman? Or are you trapped into the chase of the businessman? I love what Ramil said earlier on the call. If you caught it, he said, I got to spend a full day without having to work with my fam. That's what's up. When you hear that story, what comes to mind for you? I know we got a thumbs up from Ann. Yeah, Jacoby.
My first thought is that we have to get super clear on what we're chasing.
Yeah.
What are we doing this for?
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing I think about all the time. Because this is stressful and it's like, is it worth it?
Yeah. Right. And like, there's uh, like personally, I have a lot of conflict with this conversation, right?
Hmm.
Because number one, we hope we live a long and healthy life, but we don't know.
Right.
Right. I just had a friend here in Kansas City. Her husband is like 47 years old. He just passed away yesterday. 17 months.
Oh,
Cancer.
man.
In 17 months. Done. And they've saved for retirement and they were waiting to take the trips and saving up for the boat and all the things, right? There are no promises. So it's like, dang it. what are we passing on because we're being smart and frugal and forward thinking and saving and like when we like what it, this is a challenge for me, right? Like I don't know, I don't have the answer here, and like I really would love your guys' take on this, right? Like what is the balance? What's the counterbalance? Like the fisherman goes out each morning, he has to work, he goes and gets as many fish as he needs, though. Then he comes in, has enough for his family, enough to share, enough to go and sip on some wine and play some guitars and hang out with your friends.
Yeah, jumping back into what we were talking about, I think that there is a misconception in this business that you can't be successful unless you have something that's huge and you hire and you have a team and you have
Mhm.
all this.
Yeah.
That was like the goal for,
Mhm.
let's call it 8 to 10 years there for,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, if you really, like he says, you go do the cannery, do all that. It's like, well, if you really grow and do 40 deals a year, then you can hire an assistant, and then you can do this, and then you can do this, and then, well, it's more stressful having to make sure that that person's salary is always paid.
Mhm.
You know, like just because you're small doesn't mean it's worse.
I
And so
coach it.
there's a real big
Yeah.
misconception in our industry for a
Yeah.
while there.
I coach a team with 15 agents. They do 260 transactions a year. They do a ton of business. And the rainmaker is like, I made more by myself. I wish I could
Mm-hmm.
go back, but now I can't. Like I
Yeah.
have all these people now. And then I coach somebody that's like, I really only need to do 2 deals a month. And then now I get to stay home with my 5 kids, right? Like, and help my husband now launch his business and do his thing. And she's like, I used to think I had to do 5 or 6 to be successful, to compare, right? Because I was part of this office or this culture, whatever, that has like units in production. Is the with like if you're not doing 5 or 6, do you even have a real business? And she's like, I just need to do two a month was more was 6 figures, right? For her. And then she gets to do whatever she wants with her fam. What is it? Right? Where do we get caught in that trap? And how
I think it's
quickly, how
it's
easily?
just
Yeah.
life.
Yeah,
I
Ramil.
think. I think it's just life. I mean, kind of like Jacoby said. I mean, it's not really just in real estate, right? That you need to grow it. It's just life, right? Like you set a goal, you meet your goal, and then immediately the next thing is, okay, what's my next goal? It's bigger and better, right? So it's
Hmm.
just like you're constantly just compounding on that, and it's ingrained in us. And even, it's I think I'm going through that journal, right? The core values one
Hmm.
that you had me get. Um, and it's like you almost need to constantly check in, right, to
Uh-huh.
see where you're at. And part of your goal should be, again, realizing why you're doing it, like what is that goal? And then after that, to me, it should be okay, what can I do to maintain this, right? It doesn't always
Yeah.
have to be bigger and better. It's kind of like there's a quote, I'm sure everyone's probably heard a variation of it, but it's like, I remember something along the lines like I remember dreaming about the things that I have now, or
Hmm.
wishing for the things that I have now, wishing for the life that I have now.
Yeah. I prayed for the problems that I have now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about it, I think the last time we were on a call, where it's like you don't realize that like you're at the point that you were trying to get to, right?
Hmm.
You're not enjoying it. Instead, you're just saying, okay, what's the next thing? Right? When all you wanted was to get to that point where you're at currently. And you're saying, and before you got there, you're like, this is all I need to be happy, right? This is all I want. I want to be able to do this. That's all I need. And then when you're there, you just miss out on it, looking for the next thing.
Yeah. Alex Hormozy, I know Jacoby's just as big as a fanboy as I am of our guy, Alex. He talks about this, right? Like when we chase either the income or the thing or the boat or the house or the car, thinking that it's going to bring us happiness, it's the same thing as thinking that the next meal is going to keep you full forever. Like happiness is like that. Like happiness is temporary. It's not destinational. It's not an item, right? What he discovered was that when he just completely I forget how he talks about it, but he's like I'm so anti happiness, like anti like going after happiness, that he's become more like he finds true fulfillment. And like if you ask yourself like, are you happy? Like overall, like most people will be like, well, yeah, I am. And what he found is that when he does hard things and he just kind of works, etc., like that's where he gets his sense of well-being and fulfillment. Like that's the happiness thing. It's not the watch or the car or the next thing or like I mean look at the way the guy dresses. The guy's in like tank tops and like no strips and a ball cap with like Keens. He wears Keens like everywhere with like cargo shorts, like into fancy restaurants. Like that's just who he is. So yeah.
Have you heard the story about the teacher and the kids with the balloons?
No, tell us.
Well, I hope I don't butcher it. So I was hoping you'd heard it. So this teacher writes down all the students' names on a balloon that's blown up, and they blow up these balloons. They write every student's name on it, and as she's putting their names on it, she's throwing the balloon into the hallway while the students are still in the classroom. And she finally gets all of them. Let's say there's 50 students. They finally get them all. She said, "All right, you have 30 seconds or a minute to run out there and find your balloon." So these kids run out there and they can't find their name on a balloon in the allotted amount of time. And so everybody's sad and they're like, this is awful. She said, all right, here's what we're going to do. You just have to grab a balloon and then find the person that balloon belongs to. And so as soon as they change it and they pick one up, pick up James's balloon, runs to James, boom. He said the balloons were delivered within 30 seconds, super fast. Everybody is so ecstatic. And the goal and the thought behind it is, am I running around chasing for my own happiness in life, or am I doing something fulfilling that brings happiness to others? And when we really start looking at fulfillment and how do I help others, Ziegler, how do I help others get what they want? And then in life,
Mhm.
in return, I'll get what I want. That's the true value and meaning of happiness. And I think about that story about the fisherman. I think about that one a lot because we are building big things. And there's a whole lot of days where my wife and I look at each other and we're like, do we want to just sell it all? Do we care?
Mhm.
Why do I
Mhm.
do that?
Yeah.
And you have to stay connected to a very, very clear long term why, or else you're going to get burnt out. And it's like, what is the point of it all? It's
Mhm.
like you have to have very clear connections with that.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, like I like nice things, right? And I also understand the trap. I also understand the trap. I mean, I have 4 disc golf bags. Like I get it. That's just now because now I can take people. Now I can take 4 people now. That's why I'm an advocate for the sport. I'm an ambassador. That's what it is. Um, but yeah, uh, this is really yeah, this topic's fascinating, right? Because and what's interesting is that it's for me as well as a coach, my job is to help you like achieve your potential and help you get there and be another set of eyes and ears. And if like your goal is to grow, then cool. Then we put together systems and tools to grow. But then at some point, I mean, and I've got another client I talked to, and I'm like, all right, so what's the goal this year? And he says the goal this year is to make the same amount of money, and I want to work half the time, so I can then do those things. I say that's cool, right? Because in a sense, that's actually like doubling your income when it comes to your effect per hour. So oftentimes we're like, well, I want to do more. Why? Well, because more is better. Is it? What's your goal this year? This. Why? Because it's more. Why is that important? I don't know. Then I don't think we're going to get there. How are we going to get there? What if we don't get there? What happens? Well, I don't know. It'll be okay. As long as I make this, which then now that's actually the goal. The goal is never, right? Like, so what is it for? For what? Right? This is the part, like and what Ramil said is that the constant reflection, the journey, and that's where like the whole concept behind the book, the gap in the gain, uh uh comes from, right? Seeing all the things that you have actually accomplished versus all the things that still could be done, right? As entrepreneurs, oftentimes we look at success or look at happiness kind of like a horizon. We're always looking ahead, going, well, I could have been more productive. I could have done this. I could have. I did okay, but I could have done more. I could have done more. And so you get into that focusing on what you didn't do versus all the things that you've done so far. Other thoughts? What are you guys thinking? Mike, you're nodding quite a bit. You're muted.
I'm sorry. I'm just acknowledging. I'm fine. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, but love to hear your thoughts if you have any.
Um,
I mean, I don't mean to call on you, but I just saw you're emphatically kind of engaging.
then maybe I shouldn't be so emphatic.
No, do it. It's always good to hear your thoughts, right?
I think that when I have felt my most, um, I'm going to just say the word desperate because I don't know what other word to use, is when I've been more focused on what my needs were. And so you're right, and it's the least fulfilling.
Yeah.
So I think what somebody said earlier is, focus on what other people need and how you can do it. That gives me more energy. And that makes me the happiest, actually. At the end of the day, I'm like, yes, as opposed to, okay, got it done. They're very different feeling.
Anyone else? We got 5 minutes to go here around this conversation.
I honestly have like a lot of thoughts in my head about it. I think a lot of times about the whole like enough thing, which I believe came from a certain place. But they a lot of my motivation a lot of times comes from I want to be able to do this for somebody in my family or like have this or I mean not for me, like for somebody else. And I think it's a big driving motivator for me with working, but sometimes I have to stop and think like even my parents, one of my big motivators right now is my mother-in-law is not in a great financial situation. And I really would like to be able to help her buy a house or like condo or something. And even my parents have been like, it's not your responsibility. Like they're trying to like, stop me from making it my responsibility. And they're like, what good, kind of is it going to do for you to help her when you've got 3 kids and everything? So I do have to stop and kind of balance those things sometimes, but yeah, helping other people and stuff has been a huge motivator for me. I just like real estate and I like helping people, so I really do enjoy doing it. And that is one of the hard things of me when I enjoy a job because I don't stop. So I don't stop and smell roses sometimes because I just keep on working.
Yeah. Thanks, Brooke.
I think one of the things for me as well is this year my goals were a little bit different. I focused like on a transactional goal, and then I also wanted to. So I looked at like different aspects in life. Like I wanted to spend more time with my daughter. So like Wednesdays I pick her up, we go have dinner, and so that's on my calendar. And then like spiritually, I want to throughout this year I've never read the entire Bible. And so I've got a plan to, that I've been focusing on and trying to work on every day. And it's by the end of the year, then we'll be through it. So I feel like my wins, I've kind of changed the focus on it just being money. I do in real estate, I want to do 50 listings, which yes, that's great. But then where would that put me if I'm just working for 50 listings, And so that's why I wrap, pretty much my goals around everything in my life. And I feel like it's been really great. So I'm building like the relationship with my daughter, and we spend a lot of time together with my family, like on the weekends, like we're always doing stuff. And to me, like those things are very important. Like I don't like to work on Sundays. And so, and there are things that I can do, but like if I actually say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, like it's easier to do that when you have it clear. So
Right on. Thanks for sharing. That's awesome. And that's so cool that you've got a standing dinner date with your daughter. That's awesome. Love that. Anyone else? Final thoughts? Um, there's a another little short book uh out there called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, which is kind of in alignment with this. It's a good book. It's short. Uh that talks about this. I'll leave you with that. You can go explore that conversation. And you're muted if you're trying to say something. Here, hold on. I'll unmute you. Or I've asked to unmute you. You just drive and be safe. We'll talk later. There you are. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Thanks for the conversation, Matt. Just good to reevaluate these things.
Yeah, man. No, this is the thing is if we leave it unchecked and we operate without a rudder, right? Sometimes we can get so far down the path where you look up and go, wait a minute, like I was so much happier when things were simpler or this or that or whatever it was. And like we can sometimes build our own mousetrap. Right. So it's just, I think being aware, being cognizant and keep checking in and asking. And here's the other thing is especially if there's other people in your life, ask them as well. Like, hey, what's a win for us? What all do we really need or desire? And then how do we craft and create a life to where we can be out of scarcity and into abundance, and also like making sure that we're doing the things that we really want to do. Right? Like, what's that counterbalance look like? Because the fisherman still has to get up each morning and go catch some fish. But then when he's done, he's done. So the question is, do you know when you're done? Do you know when you've had enough fish? Right? He's bringing 3 to 5 fish back every day. Did we make enough contacts? Did we set an appointment? Do we put somebody on a drip? What are your fish? Awesome. Well, I just wanted to share with you guys one of my favorite stories, and hopefully gives you an opportunity to qualify and quantify what is your win, right? So we don't lose sight. So we don't have to take 15 or 20 years to build the life that we're already in, possibly, right? All right, kids, have an amazing Monday. That's your conversation. We'll see you Wednesday, same time, same channel. Bye.